Emily opened her eyes when the alarm clock rang. It was dark outside. She quickly got up from the small bed and looked at herself in the old mirror on the wall. His brown eyes looked sad. "One more day," she said softly, arranging her hair into a bun. Emily thought about how she got there. 2 years ago, she left her country dreaming of a better life in America. Now she cleaned rich people's houses. She left the room very quietly. The big house was silent. Everyone was still sleeping. Emily began cleaning, trying not to make any noise. Suddenly, she saw someone at the kitchen door. Emily almost dropped the bucket in fright. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," said a man's voice. It was Michael Thompson, the owner of the house. He looked at Emily curiously. "Mr. Thompson," Emily stuttered, looking at the floor. "I didn't know you were awake." Michael smiled. "I couldn't sleep. Too many things on my mind, you know." Emily nodded yes. She didn't talk much to her boss. "Emily, isn't it?" Michael asked, coming closer. "Yes, sir," she replied, surprised that he knew her name. Michael seemed to think of something. "Have you had breakfast yet?" Emily was surprised by the question. "No, sir. I'll eat after I clean up." Michael frowned. "That's not good. Why don't you eat with me? I'm going to make pancakes." Emily blushed. "Oh no, I can't." "Please," Michael said in a gentle voice. "It's the boss's order, if that helps." Before Emily could say no again, Michael was already getting things ready to make coffee. She looked over, finding it funny to see her boss in the kitchen. "Do you like blueberries?" he asked. Emily smiled a little. "Yeah, really like." While Michael made coffee, they talked. Emily discovered that he was funny and nice, not serious like she thought. "So, Emily," Michael said, placing a plate of pancakes in front of her, "tell me about yourself. Where did you come from?" Emily was nervous. She didn't like this question because she had to lie or tell the difficult truth. I came from Brazil," she replied. Michael was interested. "Brazil? That's cool. I've always wanted to visit. How did you end up here?" Emily picked at her food, not looking at Michael. "It's a long story," she said softly. "We have time," Michael smiled. "I want to hear it, if you want to tell me." Suddenly, Emily felt like telling everything. Maybe it was because Michael seemed so kind. She started talking. Emily talked about her life in Brazil, her dreams of coming to America, and how difficult it was to live without documents. Michael listened carefully, looking sad and worried. "Emily, I didn't know," he said quietly when she finished. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Emily wiped away a tear. "I was scared. Scared of losing my job, of having to return to Brazil." Michael took her hand. Emily felt a shiver. "You don't need to be afraid. I'll help you, okay? Let's find a way to solve this." Before Emily could respond, they heard footsteps. Catherine, Michael's fiancée, entered the kitchen. She stopped suddenly when she saw the two. "Michael? What's going on here?" she asked in an angry voice. Michael quickly removed his hand and stood up. "Catherine, good morning. I was just having coffee with the maid," Catherine interrupted, looking at Emily with a frown. Emily got up quickly, very embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I should be working. Excuse me." She ran out of the kitchen. His heart was pounding. As she walked away, Emily heard Michael and Catherine starting to fight. Emily went back to her small room and leaned against the door. She was breathing fast. What had happened? How did a simple breakfast change everything? She closed her eyes and remembered Michael taking her hand. Emily knew it was dangerous to like her boss, especially a man who was getting married. But as she prepared to return to work, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time in a long time, she dreamed of a better future, where she no longer needed to hide. Emily didn't know that that breakfast was just the beginning of a big change in her life. After that special breakfast, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Michael. She knew she shouldn't, but her heart beat faster every time she saw him. A week later, Emily was cleaning the living room when she heard loud voices. It was Michael arguing with Catherine, his fiancée. "I can't believe you haven't sent that maid away yet," Catherine shouted. Emily stood quietly behind the door, afraid to breathe. "Emily is a great employee," Michael replied calmly. "I'm not going to fire her just because you don't like her." Catherine huffed in anger. "Don't you even notice how she looks at you? She's in love with you, you fool." Emily felt her face burn. Was it really that obvious? "That's ridiculous," Michael said, but his voice sounded strange, like he wasn't sure. Emily ran away before they saw her. His heart was beating so hard it felt like it was going to explode. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what Catherine had said. Did Michael like her too? No, that was impossible. He was rich, handsome, and was getting married. Why would you want an undocumented maid? Suddenly, Emily heard a noise. Someone was walking around the house. Afraid, she left the room to see what it was. To his surprise, it was Michael. He was in the kitchen, going through a box. "Mr. Thompson," Emily called softly. "Everything is fine." Michael turned around, looking scared. "Emily, I didn't know you were awake." Emily noticed that he was hiding something behind his back. "What are you doing?" Michael blushed. I wanted to give you something, but now it seems silly." He showed what he was hiding. It was a beautiful book with a hard cover. "You told me you liked reading," Michael explained. "I thought you might like this one." Emily picked up the book, feeling her heart race. "Thank you," she whispered. "It's very kind of you." They looked at each other for a moment. Emily felt that something important was happening, but she couldn't explain what. Suddenly, Michael took a step forward. He raised his hand as if to touch Emily's face. She held her breath. And then they heard a scream coming from upstairs. "Michael, where are you?" was Catherine's voice. Michael jumped back, looking guilty. I need to go. Good night, Emily." He ran away, leaving Emily alone in the dark kitchen. In the days that followed, Emily noticed that Michael avoided her. He barely looked at her when he passed by. Emily felt sad and confused. One afternoon, as Emily was tidying Michael and Catherine's room, she heard them talking in the hallway. "Honey, are you sure about this marriage?" Catherine asked. His voice sounded worried. Emily froze. She knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't move. "Of course I do," Michael replied, but his voice didn't sound quite right. "It's just, you seem so distant lately," Catherine continued. "Is it because of that maid?" There was a long silence. Emily held her breath. "Don't be silly," Michael finally said. "Emily is just an employee, nothing more." Michael's words were like a knife in Emily's heart. She felt tears in her eyes. That night, Emily made a difficult decision. She couldn't stay in that house any longer. It was very painful to be around Michael, knowing that he would never love her. Emily packed her few things into an old backpack. She wrote a goodbye note and left it in the kitchen. When everyone was asleep, Emily went out the back door. She looked at the large house one last time, her heart feeling heavy. "Goodbye, Michael," she whispered into the night. Emily started walking down the dark street, not knowing where to go. She was scared, but she knew she couldn't go back. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Someone was running towards him. "Emily. Espier." She turned around, surprised. It was Michael, still in his pajamas, running down the street. "Please don't go," he said, panting. "I read your note. I can't let you leave." Emily looked at him, confused. "But you said I was just an employee." Michael shook his head. "I lied. To Catherine, to myself. The truth is, I fell in love with you, Emily." Emily felt her heart stop. Was she dreaming? "But what about your wedding?" she asked. Michael took her hands. "I'm going to cancel it. I can't marry Catherine when my heart belongs to someone else. Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. She looked into Michael's eyes and saw love, fear, and hope. I love you too, she whispered. Michael smiled and pulled her into a tight hug. There, in the middle of the dark street, Emily finally felt at home. But as they hugged each other, neither noticed the figure hidden in the shadows. Catherine watched the scene, her eyes shining with anger. It won't stay like this, she muttered to herself. You'll regret it. The next morning, Emily woke up with a smile on her face. She could hardly believe that Michael truly loved her. It seemed like a beautiful dream. But soon Emily's smile disappeared. She remembered that she still had a big problem. She didn't have documents to live in the United States. Emily walked down the stairs slowly, afraid of what might happen. In the kitchen, she found Michael. He smiled when he saw her. Good morning, my love, Michael said, giving Emily a kiss on the cheek. Emily blushed. It was still strange to hear Michael talk to her like that. Michael, Emily began, what are we going to do now? I still don't have documents. Michael took Emily's hands. Don't worry. I'll hire the best lawyers to help you. We'll solve this together. Emily felt her heart fill with hope. Maybe everything could work out after all. Suddenly they heard a loud noise. The front door opened with force, and several police officers entered the house. Police. Nobody move, shouted one of the police officers. Emily froze in fear. His worst nightmare was coming true. A police officer approached them. We have a report that there is an illegal immigrant in this house. Is that you? He asked, looking at Emily. Before Emily could respond, Michael stepped in front of her. Wait a minute, he said. There must be a mistake. But the policeman wouldn't listen. Sir, step aside. We are taking this woman into custody. Emily started to cry. Please don't, she begged. Michael hugged Emily tightly. I'm not going to let them take her, he told the officers. Emily is my fiancée. We're getting married. Everyone was silent. Emily looked at Michael in surprise. She didn't know if he was serious or just trying to help her. The policeman looked confused. Your fiancée? But we received a tip that she was an illegal employee. That's not true, Michael said firmly. Emily is my fiancée. Someone must have made a false report. At that moment, Catherine appeared at the kitchen door. She looked very angry. He's lying, Catherine screamed. That woman is a liar. She's here illegally. The police didn't know what to do. They looked from Michael to Catherine and then to Emily. Look, said the chief police officer, we're going to have to take you all to the police station to clear this situation up. Emily felt her heart sink. She looked at Michael, fear in her eyes. It's going to be okay, Michael whispered, squeezing her hand. I promise. At the police station, Emily, Michael, and Catherine were separated for questioning. Emily was very scared. She knew she had done something wrong by staying in the country without documents, but she just wanted a better life. Was this really so wrong? After hours of questions, Emily was taken to a room where Michael was already waiting. When she entered, he ran to hug her. Are you okay? Michael asked, worried. Emily nodded, trying not to cry. What will happen now? Before Michael could respond, the deputy entered the room. He looked serious, but not angry. Well, the deputy began, we have a complicated situation here, Mr. Thompson. Do you maintain that Miss Emily is your fiancée? Michael looked into Emily's eyes. Yes, he said firmly. I love her and I want to marry her. The deputy sighed. The problem is that Miss Emily is in the country illegally. Normally she would have to be deported. Emily felt the tears start to fall. That was it. She would have to return to Brazil. But then the delegate continued, however, if you are actually going to get married, that changes things. There is a process for foreign fiancés to obtain a visa. Emily could hardly believe what she was hearing. There was a chance. What do we need to do? Michael asked anxiously. The delegate explained the process. It would be difficult and take time, but it was possible. Emily could stay in the country while her visa application was processed. But be careful, the deputy warned. If this is discovered to be a lie, the consequences will be serious. Michael and Emily looked at each other. They knew it wasn't a lie. Their love was real. "We understand," Michael said. "We'll do everything right." When they left the police station, it was already night. Emily was tired but happy. She had a chance to be with Michael, to have the life she always dreamed of. "Thank you," Emily said softly to Michael, "for not giving up on me." Michael smiled and kissed Emily's forehead. "I will never give up on you. We will face this together." As they walked hand in hand, Emily felt that, for the first time in a long time, she had a future ahead of her, a future full of love and hope. But what Emily and Michael didn't know was that Catherine hadn't given up. Hidden in the shadows, she watched them, planning her revenge. "You guys think you won," Catherine muttered to herself. "But this is just the beginning." The sun was shining brightly when Emily woke up. She smiled, remembering that today was a special day. Today, she and Michael were getting married for real. In the last few months, a lot had happened. Emily and Michael had to prove to everyone that their love was real. It was not easy. They had to answer a lot of questions and show a lot of papers. But now, finally, Emily had her documents. She could stay in the United States without fear. And best of all, she could marry the man she loved. Emily looked at herself in the mirror. She looked beautiful in her simple white dress. Her hands shook a little as she put on the veil. "You look wonderful," said a voice behind her. Emily turned around and saw Maria, the cook at Michael's house. Maria had become great friends with Emily. "Thank you, Maria," Emily smiled. "I'm a little nervous." Maria gave Emily a hug. "Don't be. Michael loves you very much. You both deserve to be happy." Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was Michael's lawyer, Mr. Johnson. "Emily," he said, looking worried, "we have a problem. Catherine is here." Emily felt her heart sink. Catherine, Michael's ex-fiancée, hadn't given up on causing trouble. She kept saying that Emily was a liar. "What does she want?" Emily asked, scared. "She says she has proof that her marriage is fake, Mr. Johnson explained. "She threatens to call immigration if we don't cancel the wedding." Emily felt her legs go weak. Would your dream end like this? At that moment, Michael entered the room. He looked angry, but when he saw Emily, his face softened. "My love," he said, hugging Emily, "don't worry. I won't let Catherine ruin our day." Emily looked into Michael's eyes. "But what if she really has proof? What if they send me away?" Michael cupped Emily's face tenderly. "Then I'll go with you. No matter where, we'll be together." Michael's words filled Emily's heart with courage. She knew that with him by her side, she could face anything. "Come on," Emily said, determined. "Let's settle this once and for all." They went downstairs and found Catherine in the living room. She smiled in an evil way. "Ah, there are the lovebirds," Catherine said wryly, ready to admit this is all a hoax. Michael stepped forward. "That's enough, Catherine. Why can't you accept that it's over? I really love Emily." Catherine laughed. "Love, please. She just wants your documents and your money, Michael, and I can prove it." She took an envelope out of her bag. "I have old emails from Emily here. In them, she talks about using a rich muggle to stay in the country." Emily turned pale. She remembered those emails. "I had written to a friend a long time ago before I met Michael, when I was desperate." That was before Emily started to explain, but Catherine interrupted her. "See? She admits it. This is all a plan." Michael looked at Emily, confused. For a terrible moment, Emily thought he would believe Catherine. But then Michael smiled. "You know what, Catherine? It doesn't matter what Emily wrote in the past. What matters is what we have now." He turned to Emily. "I know you, Emily. I know your love is true. And even if it wasn't, even if you started this for other reasons, I don't care. Because I love you, and I know you love me too." Emily felt tears in her eyes. "Oh, Michael." Catherine looked furious. "You guys are crazy. I'm going to call immigration right now." But before she could do anything, Mr. Johnson intervened. "Actually, Catherine," he said calmly, "you're not going to do anything like that, because if you do, I'll have to inform the police about your attempted blackmail and false report." Catherine turned white. "What?" "That's right, Mr. Johnson continued. "We have proof that you tried to sabotage Emily's visa process with lies. That's a crime, you know." Catherine looked around in panic. Then, without saying anything else, she grabbed her bag and ran away. Emily could hardly believe it. It was over. Catherine could no longer threaten them. Michael hugged Emily tightly. "It's over, my love. Now we can be happy." Emily looked at Michael, her heart overflowing with love. "Thank you for believing in me." Michael smiled. "Always. Now, what do you think about us getting married?" Emily laughed happily. "I think it is a great idea." The rest of the day was like a dream. Emily and Michael got married in a simple and beautiful garden ceremony. Their friends were there, cheering and throwing rice when they said yes. Later at the party, Emily looked at Michael dancing with Maria. She smiled, thinking about how her life had changed. From a scared and alone girl, she became a loved and happy woman. She had a wonderful husband, true friends, and a future full of possibilities. Emily knew there were still challenges ahead, but now she was no longer afraid. With Michael by her side, she could face anything. As the music played and people laughed and danced, Emily closed her eyes and made a wish. A wish for many years of happiness, love, and adventures with Michael. And in her heart, she knew that this wish would come true.